Hi there, I'm Sai and I'm in my motorhome called Joy. Welcome to my channel, which is called Nugget of Wisdom. I'm really keen to just expand a little bit on um, the topic of fundamental truth, because even though I kind of put it to one side in a previous video, I think it is important with respect to how in life we can use our knowledge and understanding to be more peaceful and have less anxiety and less stress. And what I would say, interestingly, is that if you look at, a lot of the wars, the major suffering in the world, you'll notice that it does revolve around people who are seeking the fundamental truth. They want to know, who am I? What am I? What is existence? What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? And often through the ages, they've decided it's God. It's a God, many of thousands of gods. My God, this is what he says I must do. And then that satisfies me that this is the fundamental truth of my existence. And you can see where that has got us in the world. We have, all sorts of conflicts. And if you were to take all the people with all of the wisdom that's ever been, discovered, all of the ideas, all of the philosophies, all of the science, put all the experts into a room for a week or a month and say, okay, get together and decide which God is the right God, you know that at the end they would not be able to decide. In fact, you probably end up with serious problems. People would probably start to fight each other and have to be all sorts of aggression, frustration. So the idea of surrendering is a basic technique, for want of a better word, that can take away so much stress and anxiety in your life. You just surrender and say, I don't know. I don't know. And do I need to know? No, I don't need to know. And we do this all the time in our lives. When you drive your car down the motorway, you drive somewhere 100 miles, you're going to be traveling at 75 miles an hour and through streets, and you're going to be depending on all these technologies in your car to work properly, thousands of components. Do you really get up in the morning and say, okay, I have to know exactly how this car works. I have to go into the engine, find out everything, know that how it works, how it fits, go to the factory and see how it was built. You don't. You surrender because you have faith in the technology in the car. And then what you do is when you drive the car, you just drive the car, make sure you drive it properly. And in my world, that's kind of the difference between fundamental and relative truth. The relative truth in the world, we get on, we engage, we do the things that we need to do to live. And to do the right thing and to live a good life and be creative and be happy and be peaceful. But fundamental truths, we can say, okay, I surrender to that. I let go. Because I don't know and I can never know. And also, if I do know, do I really know? So in what measure is what I'm saying what is the truth? Because nobody knows what it is. Nobody has any understanding of what the truth actually is about fundamental existence. And on top of that, by knowing, does it make my life more peaceful? No. By convincing myself and my ego that I know the nature of fundamental existence, does that make my life any better? Well, it hasn't done for so many generations of people. There are devout religious people who have, spent their whole lives dedicated to a God. And they've ended up basically killing their fellow man. You see it in the world today. So I think that's important. And the other thing is that within this world, this dualistic world full of language and everything else, we have tools that allow us to navigate this world. But whatever it is that's engaged in the creation of this world, whatever outside space and time and matter, we have no comprehension of. So even if we could intellectually try to decipher what the nature of the the universe is or whatever, we would probably struggle because the tools we're using are inside the game, not outside the game. And this is why you'll see it spiritual teachers. They're often very quiet people and they meditate because they know that intellectually you can get so far with any kind of self-inquiry, any kind of connection with what they would call source or infinite intelligence. But they know that the path to it is not through the intellectual mind. In fact, the intellectual mind could just go crazy. And you see the craziness in the world because of it. So I think it's important that when we set off on a path to express our wonder and awe about the world, that's all it is. We don't have to say, no, I don't want to know anything. You can say, no, I want to be interested. I'm fascinated with the James Webb Telescope. Every time that telescope brings back some new images, it's amazing. It starts to give us an idea that from a size point of view, the universe is just this incredible, magnificent, infinitely massive kind of place. And that our theories, the Big Bang and others, are just theories. They've helped us to put things into space. They've helped us to send a rocket to the moon. They've helped us put satellites up. But they're not fundamental truths. So I think that's really all I wanted to say on this. And I think it's important, it was just important to basically discuss this topic because it does connect so much with so much of the anxiety and the stress that we have in our world today. And once you get to that point where you can let go and you can surrender, you can then start to talk to your brothers and sisters all around the world and say, okay, you have a different view, you have a different perspective, but it doesn't matter. I'm not caught up in this. I haven't got to a point where I believe in something and I create a whole moral agenda, and that moral agenda sets a whole pile of rules in place that make me better than you, that give me more of a right to resources than you, that make me more of the chosen one. All that goes. No one is the chosen one. So the humanity we feel for other people the healing process starts to occur. But also the scientist and the religious person and the psychologist and the philosopher and the spiritual teacher and the monk and the Christian mystic and the atheist can all start to just calm down and get to know each other and respect each other. And I think that's also very, very important. And we can also get to know what we are not. We may not never know what we actually are, but we can move along quite positively to realize what we are not. And that's also important because it's very, very easy in some cases to do that. So self-inquiry, which is a fantastic tool, and I've put links in my videos to give you a chance to basically see what that means, allows you to sort of start doing that. And once you realize what you are not, that takes a load of anxiety out of your life. And when I say what you are not, fundamentally what you are not. But also when scientists and spiritualists and neurologists and biologists and all these people start to talk to each other, they start to explore different perspectives that lead to the same place. And there's a great example of this. It's called The Elephant and the Blind Men. And it's a lovely old Indian story about some blind men who are all touching an elephant. And each blind man has a different idea of what the elephant actually is. I can't remember what it was, but it's something like this. You blind man touching the leg think the leg is a tree, or blind man touching the trunk thinks it's a water pipe, or blind man touching the side thinks it's a wall. But they all have a very different view of what the elephant is. And then they've got two directions they can take. They can decide that they're going to all sort of disagree and argue with each other and even fight because of their own dogmas and their own view and what they perceive to be truth. Or they can all just swap ideas, swap their observations. And very quickly, they'll start to realize, maybe this isn't a tree after all. Maybe it's 4 trees. Maybe it's not a tree at all because it's moving. Maybe it's a creature. And bit by bit, they can start to get to a point where they realize that they're looking at a creature. I should say looking, they're touching a creature. And then they can basically talk to somebody who has got vision and say, this is what we can feel. What do you describe it to be? And then they can get some confirmation from somebody else who has an elephant and say, okay, well, that looks similar and so on. And eventually they get to a consensus. And the truth is that we in the world can get to a consensus today. We can get to a consensus about what we're not. And we can get to a consensus about how we can use our knowledge and vast wisdom of the ages and through science and everything else to basically re-establish some basic principles that make our lives much more peaceful. And this is fundamental. Whenever you watch on television or in the media conflicts, you'll notice very, very, very quickly, you'll notice whenever a conflict arises, people become very tribal and they kind of separate into 2 factions, dualistic factions. The bad guys are there, the good guys are there. So you're the bad guys, we're the good guys. No. We're the good guys and you're the bad guys. And then they throw abuse at each other. You see it all the time. Conflicts. Go on the net now. Go onto YouTube and just look. Conflicts between countries. Conflicts between regions. Conflicts between different work traditions. Conflicts between races. Conflicts between genders, male and female. They establish a tribe. The tribe has got 2 sides. And then they basically start attacking each other. If the side that has less power, less resource, loses, then it gets bullied, people get killed, discriminated against. If the side that has got less resources and is the bullied one happens to get to a point where it can win, it becomes the bully. And it takes over. And it does the very things that it, preaches that it would never do. And you see this. I don't even need to give you an example. You can see this. And you can see in the internet, with all the stories that were being told, there's a whole load of, you can see a whole load of stresses and strains about fundamental truth. Who has the right fundamental truth? Who is now the enemy? And how we can get rid of the enemy or attack the enemy, or how we can convince people to join our club or our tribe. None of it works. It's never worked. It never will work. And often what it also does, it just satisfies a tribal need within people. This anxiety, this need to feel part of something. Or for them to believe in something that often has really very little credibility and would rate very low on any kind of truth score. And then when it's challenged, the ego comes in and the ego goes, no, I hang on to this. I want to hang on to this belief. The world was created in 7 days. I remember when I was a kid in Ireland, I was in a religious class and I put my hand up and I said to the teacher, if the world was created in 7 days, what about the dinosaurs? And he looked at me, got really angry. He said, that's not this class. That's a science class. It has nothing to do with us. To me, I was thinking, well, and I of course chirped away and was like, but in the end I realized I couldn't, there was no conversation. And in that class, the conversation was about how we were the chosen ones because I was born Catholic, and how the Protestants were all going to go to hell unless we tried to convert them. But if you looked if you looked at the difference between the Catholics and the Protestants, and you were an alien from another planet, you'd say, what's the difference between these religions? They're really they're like variants of the same religion. But on top of that, really interestingly, recent studies have been done, say, for example, with the history of the genetics of the Irish people. And guess where most Irish people originated from? They originated from the UK. And these countries fight each other tribally and discriminate against each other on a religious basis or on national basis. And guess where all of the people from the UK came from? Well, all over the place. Probably, they were Vikings and they came from Africa and everywhere else. So it's incredible how our quest for fundamental truth and relating that to our fear of death fundamentally. That because we have a deep belief that death is the end, and because we're tribal and we're always worried about being killed or being hurt or becoming ill, we fear it so much that we're constantly obsessed with clinging on to stories about fundamental truths about our existence that we don't even believe. That if we sat down and just looked at them, we'd say, hold on a second, they're nonsense, basically. Or if nonsense is a rude word, but they may have had a legitimacy generations ago where people had a different view of the world. But today, with everything we've revealed and everything we know, they can't be true. The dinosaurs couldn't have lived alongside a world that was created in 7 days. It doesn't make any sense. And for your religious teacher to turn around and say, basically, don't even talk about dinosaurs. Well, you then go into your science class, and your science class teacher says, here's all of the history of the world, and it's a completely different history. And of course, they're not incompatible. You can evolve. The scientists and the spiritual teachers and religious people can all talk to each other, and they can come to a new relative truth. To say, of course, the world is this incredible place. We don't know how it was created, but it's obviously incredible, and dinosaurs were part of it. It doesn't mean you have to then completely wipe out any notion of an infinite intelligence or anything of that nature, or a force, or that we're all part of something amazing. So that's my little sort of conversation on fundamental truths. I'll put some links on the video. And as I say, for me, I'm not going to dwell too much on it with respect to any more words of wisdom, because I don't need to. But I think from a wisdom point of view, knowing this takes so much anxiety out of your life. And just on a final note, I differentiate between suffering and pain. If I stub my toe on a chair, have you ever done that, or on a table? It's excruciatingly painful. Sometimes you can blacken your toe, you can break your nail. My reaction is going to be, oh, that's awful. Oh, I hurt myself. I might laugh and go, oh, bloody hell. And I'll sort of get over it. I'll have a few moments of stress and anxiety. I'll disassociate and go, okay, I've stubbed my toe. There's nothing I can do about it. And I'll just go off and get it bandaged, plastered, whatever. Somebody else might have the same experience, and it's overwhelming. I can't go to work tomorrow. What if my toe is broken? Why did somebody leave that table where it was? You got in my way. Why are you laughing? It's not funny. I'm really upset. I've got an interview tomorrow. I can't do it now. La 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 la. That to me is suffering. It's the enmeshment of thoughts in your mind with the things that happen, things that happen in your life. And so I think it's really important that when you start to observe your behaviors and you start to observe your thoughts, that you can disassociate from them. And you can look at your ego and your ego self and your persona self, that self that you put on like a suit of clothes. You're the police officer, you're the firefighter, you're the nurse, the doctor, the student. You put that persona on, that you can say, it's important, and it's really important to me on my life and how I navigate the world, but it's not the fundamental me. I can never know what the fundamental me is here, but it's not the fundamental me. And so when all of these thoughts and things come along and you have ups and downs in your life, it's much easier to be much more calm about how you react. And I found that in my life to be a blessing. And one of the fundamental reasons why I feel very peaceful, regardless of what happens in my life, circumstances, things that come along, which they do, I can still be happy and peaceful. So, thank you for listening, and look forward to seeing you in my next video.